Thursday of every month at 4 p.m., which is really great because then we'll have a lot more time to visit afterwards because your library has expanded its hours. So yes, let's have a hand for the library. God, thank you all. Other than that, thank you all for being here. We haven't read here for 2 months now. We're still, trying to get the habit of working our pie holes again. And I'd like to start out with a little slide tour of downtown Winona. It's not the whole enchilada or anything like that, but one thing I'm planning to do in the new year is show more pictures. The stories are all nice, but unless they'll really sink in when you can see the places, when you can walk the streets with the characters. And fortunately, I have come into a source of photographs that are not under the thumb of the Winona County Historical Society that I can use if I want to, because their owner, my fellow member of Cheerless Pain, Joan McGill, has given me permission. Please give Joan a hand. This makes all the difference in the world in my work, in what Merle and I are trying to do, because now I can show you what I had. The Morgan block. This is a picture that I just colorized with Photoshop. And it looks okay. I did the best I could do. I worked for hours on this, and hours, because I love my job, and I love the Morgan block that much. But now, oh, that's weird. I can take a picture like this. 251 East 3rd Street. I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. This is a picture about this high of an iconic Winona building whose history has been all but forgotten. The only stories I have ever heard that happened in this building came from this guy here. I somehow dimly knew that this was Walt Newman's store. It gets better. In my labors for the Winona Heritage Preservation Commission, an honor previously held, I actually had the same seat that Merle had for many years on this commission. We were doing an appropriateness meeting. I met the guy who's refurbishing this building and turning it into a butcher shop. It's going to be called Black and Sons Butcher Company, and the sons are about this high. They're little. Everything is right. We got a tour of the building. We got to see the spit stains of people who used to drink at the OK sampling room. And damn it, Joan, I got this book home. I opened to the last page. There it was. I immediately started going to work on it. And it took me a few hours. It's not horrible work. And I eventually got this. And I sent a copy of it to Kyle and to the owner of this building, who is also very interested. And she responded back, "Oh no, I think that's Nostalgia Salon across the street." Wow. But fortunately, I've got pictures, and I'm going to show them. I don't care. Another example, East 2nd Street, circa 1895. I worked for hours trying to colorize this Photoshop. And it ain't bad, but I was working off a crappy original. In the meantime, I found out that what we have here is now, what is the store called? Clara Louise. It used to be in a different time, the Second National Bank. Thomas Simpson, not to be confused with Verrazano Simpson, who built the building across the street. So keep in mind, Thomas Verrazano. Over here is the Ely block, which is now a great big huge honking parking lot. I want people to look down the street and see this. Not all the time, not reach out and touch it. I just want people to know what this looks like. And thanks to Midjourney, I can now, with a whole heck of a lot less trouble, turn it into a moody reflection of a rainy day. I like rainy days. This is the Winona that people lived in. This is the Winona that Merle and I have been now telling the city about for 2 years. It's coming this year. What's the next one? I better stop this because I'm going to lose my crap. This is what the Ely block looks like now. And you look over to across the street, Windhaven Court, and that shopping mall. That's where the Morgan block was. This was the Morgan block in 1895. This was the Morgan block in 1872. This is what Winona did to the Morgan block. This picture was sent to me of her own free will by another member of Cheerless Pain who's not here, Marilyn Wicca Esden. She said, "Hey, Joe, I got a picture for you." And she even told me a story of how when she was in 4th grade, she and her friend got to go up in the upstairs of that red building, the 5-story red building, and watch a parade. I wanted to jump through the wires and smack her one. Why didn't that happen to me? Why didn't I get to grow up in Winona? But the really sad part is that open field is block 16 of the original plot of the city of Winona. And for 4 years, it sat like that for tractor pulls and 4-H competition. Oh, stop it. There we go, Trains and Sanity. Here's the old Chicago and Northwestern Depot. Here is the old recreation bar built in 1880 by by John B. Stovall. All things that you're not going to see anywhere else but here. You know why the Morgan block jewelry did so much good business? Because anytime anybody came down off of the high wagon bridge, which you see at your left, they look up and they see Alan S. Morgan. You know, watches, silver, and diamonds. The Morgan block was like the Cadillac of Winona blocks. Okay, 3rd and Kansas, 1940. Probably the ugliest block in Winona is at the lower right-hand corner. They've made it even uglier. It's kind of like Blue Ox and Chorizo's Health Spa, and that little building down there in the middle is Mike Sherman Plumbing. Okay, that's Ed's no name on the bench there. Going to take you to Philharmonic Hall. This was the second Philharmonic Hall in Winona, built over the ashes of the second Philharmonic Hall, the first one which burned down in 1892. They built this one on top of it. And in 1918, 1919, the Philharmonic Society is on its way down. The Redmen bought this building and turned it into the Redmen's Wigwam, which is not really a politically appropriate name for a building, but a lot of concerts went on here. If you're from Winona, which I'm not, you've been here. And you've got some stories, some of which you may want to tell. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this thing, with a map. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Merle, but the action of the story, okay. Oh, okay, here we go. The Philharmonic is at 5th and Franklin, right? Okay, which way do we go? Down. Okay, and which way is Charlie going?
Charlie comes down Franklin the 3rd.
Franklin the 3rd.
Yeah, comes down there and then he takes it.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, so Charlie is moving. He's chasing his bride from 5th and Franklin.
Off straw bar, no straw.
No. Talk.
Oh. It's hard sometimes. It's really hard.
The struggle is really real.
So Charlie, see, Mrs. Beeman,
What we need is like an 11-year-old who can come and explain this stuff to us. No, check it out. Did you press this little booger down there? And now the green?
Oh.
It's green.
okay.
Okay.
So this is an old part of town. This here is.
Just go work your way into the story. I'll turn this off.
Okay. So I'm going to start. I haven't talked in 2 months. And you lose your practice. You lose your feel. You lose your vibe. You lose. And writing is completely different than talking. And I've been on a real roll as far as and I wasn't quite certain what I was going to say when I came up here. So I thank Joe for kind of introducing where we're headed. And I'm going to start with the story. So my last story I wrote called it was the Wyndham Park Block. And we went way back in time. And everybody knows where Wyndham Park is, right? Wyndham Park is where the Huff House is and all that kind of stuff. That's where the money of the times, that's where the lumber barons, the railroad barons, the barons who just were barons and banking barons and flour milling. The town was full of barons. And if you think they all thought alike, oh, you got another thing coming. They're no different than folks in the East End who are living next door to each other, and they didn't agree on nothing. I mean, that's just the way this town was. And that's what made this town special. Winonans have never marched in step. We've always got different things going. There's Cotter guys, there's Winona High guys, there's the Cotter beach houses, there's a beach house, or the boathouses across the river, and then there's the cops patrolling, smiling, knowing where all the kids were, and just hoping in those days before they recorded everything and told everything that those kids were going to get home fine. And we mostly did. Now, I was out walking today. I was out there walking in Prairie Island. In that back section behind the old deer pen. And I can't go out there without remembering Seth. Now, I don't know how many of you knew Seth Kuhlman, but I grew up with Seth. And he took his last breath. He decided I think he had a fancy Jeep, and he was going to run that Jeep through the brick fireplace. And it was, they built things well in the day. They really built things. Well, Seth didn't make it back. And it was so surprising that I'm out there 50 years later. It's 50 years, and I'm out there. And I'm thinking about Seth Kuhlman. And then I start putting together a story. And we get up there A little further down east on 3rd Street, the Coca-Cola plant. That was Seth's family. And then I think about Clint, and I talked to Clint about 3 months before he died. He was still showing up in his uniform. He was still talking. He was just... But I noticed he wondered if I was Seth. He had started slowly fading into the sunset, forgetting little things. Because Seth was pretty remarkable. He overcame a lot. He was an adopted child. And he really kind of stuck to himself when I grew up with him out in Goodview. He stuck to himself. And then he reached the teenage years. And he really got on a roll. He started enjoying life. He started having fun. He started living life. And it was him and Larry. Larry lived, Seth didn't. So every time I go out there, and I like walking along the river, it's flat, so I don't have to worry about ice, you know, and the trees give cover. And it's just kind of a special place. It's really quiet. There ain't nobody out there except, you know, dead folks. And I can't get away from the dead folks. They simply follow me around. I mean, actually, so you all know, you all come from really good people. I don't care what they did when they were younger. And they like telling stories. So I'm going to open up with a story about Wyndham Park. You know, the only thing that I struggle with it in talking here is there's no clock, so I don't know. I don't have that internal time kind of running. Well, but that's kind of rude to be turning my back like that, right? You know? So this first story is about Wyndham Park. And those of us who grew up here have a feel for that neighborhood. We grew up reading the newspapers, and we'd read about the society pages, and we'd read about the big house, the houses, and the comings and the goings, and how much of that is real, I don't know, but it was real to me reading those stories and seeing those stories. So, oh, come on, Charlie here. All right. Oh, no, that's not that one. All right, hold on. I'm such a klutz. I'll find it. I was in need of a whiskey. In the old days, the Huff Hotel, located on the corner of 3rd and Johnson, would have been my bar of choice. One of Winona's great storytellers sat at the end of that bar watching over the register. Colonel Francis Cockrell was a Winona legend. That bar, hotel, and brothel came down sometime around the turn of the century. And while it got replaced with a beautiful hotel that was representative of a town leaving its boomtown roots and becoming established wealth, the Huff legacy carried on long after it got taken down. That old history that occurred at the Huff got swept under the rug by that next generation. And old-timers declared not only that the new hotel could never replace the Huff, but that this younger generation didn't know the meaning of hard work. Legends die hard in Winona. Fortunes are like that. Out with the old, knock it down, tear it down, and build better. Memories get lost, and finding a bar where the walls talk of yesterday are hard to find. Not many traces remained of the fresh-faced Winona that existed in 1860. Now, Winona has never been considered a fresh-faced town. Any town that grew up like Winona in the middle of two wars, the Dakota and the Civil War, has scars in its soul. Take a gander at the faces of Winona's founders, and you see some beyond belief tragedies. I don't much like any TV blaring as I talk to my drink, so I decided to head to the Lafayette Bar located at 3rd and Lafayette. Kitty corner for Merchants Bank and right near where Verrazano Simpson gave his wife a public whipping back in the day. I can relax in the sanctity of the Lafayette Bar, even though it's so new that I don't hear any dead folk talking. I walked in and said hi to Adam and Jess, and I sat down to an espresso martini to catch my breath. I noticed an old guy looking a bit out of sorts sitting at the end of the bar, so I wandered over to strike up a conversation. My martini talking would have to wait until my second drink. My name's Francis Cockrell, he said, as I stared at my drink, wondering what kind of espresso beans were in that said drink. I grew up tired, so I kept the name, Colonel Cockrell said. My great uncle was a colonel in the American Revolutionary War. The real Colonel Cockrell was loaded, absolutely loaded with money. Old Virginia roots and Mama started calling me the little colonel from the time I was born. Upon his death, we got a nice chunk of money. Name never left me. False valor, I guess. He took a sip of some of that fine whiskey the Lafayette has on his shelves, and his eyes started drifting back to early times. We had a small homestead, not much more than a hill of beans, on a trail to nowhere, Kentucky. We grew tobacco, 40 acres, and I kept our slaves busy. That's hard work picking tobacco. Daddy saw that there had to be better ways to make a living, so Daddy started raising chickens and corn. He used the corn to start distilling whiskey right along the Bracken Creek. Fertilized the tobacco fields with chicken shit. Tobacco is hard on the soil. The locals said it was the finest whiskey in all of Kentucky. I chuckle looking back because most of them never left Bracken County. When my great uncle died, I moved to Cincinnati. Started selling Daddy's whiskey and partnered up with Zeke Williams. We had a small bar along the Cincinnati riverfront. How cool is that? I looked at the short, bald, dumpy man and felt yesterday. Jess came over, looked at me strangely, and asked me if I wanted another. Jess poured my drink, and I heard whisperings to my left. Name Sontag. Sold appliances out of this building. Came from across the river. I came from a hard-working German family. Went to church at St. Martin's. Had visions of hell dancing in my head. What a relief, as he slammed down his whiskey. No hell in my world, he said. Family also owned a hardware store, what became the QP Cafe across from Angst Motor Service. I didn't believe in idle time, always working, never resting until I fell asleep. Then my wife died, just 35 years old. Made me start wondering. I regret not spending more time with her before she passed. Should have spent more time with my kids. Things change as you age. I remember as a young man, Grandma telling me stories at the kitchen table about the Sontag name, going way back to old Prussia. Knowing one's roots was the European way, and she told me about the Sontag train robbers out California way, shooting and killing 1890s California. Eventually, they met their end at Folsom Prison while out on work detail, but Grandma said there was a collective shame, a tarnishment of our Sontag name, even though we were of no relation. I can't tell you how many times I was asked if those train robbers were related to me. I was starting to like this Lafayette bar as I found the spirits that filled this place, Cockrell and Sontag sharing a drink and their memories of times long past. The Lafayette bar restored some of the luster that was part of Winona's magnificent past.
Well, once they get a little older, they can move over to the front room and listen to us blather, perhaps. The story I was going to read, I'm not going to read. I'm sorry, because it needs more pictures. Dang. So instead, what you're going to get is a story that I have read already 4 times. 3 in Winona, 1 over in Trempealeau County. And I'm going to read it again just because it says something to me in January 2025. And as an aside, if ever you've been to Ironwood, Michigan, you may well appreciate this story. It goes like this. It's called A Matter of Principle, damn it. In 1859, a single woman named Anna Hamerska gave birth to a baby boy. His father wasn't identified, so he was baptized Dominic Hamersky. This was not a big deal in Kashubia. The priests are always happy to welcome a new Catholic into the world. Shortly after that, she married a man named Dominic Pihovsky. Maybe he was Dominic's father. Maybe he wasn't. But Dominic's younger brother's name used the name Pihovsky. Dominic could have called himself Pihovsky as well. It would have been a lot easier if you had the same last name as your mom. But he wouldn't, because he was baptized Dominic Hamersky, and that was his name, and that was a matter of principle. When Dominic was 10, his mother and stepfather emigrated to Winona. They left him behind in what used to be called Poland. He was studying to become a parish organist. Now, in Poland / Kashubia / West Prussia, or whatever they called it back in the 1850s, in a church you had 2 important people. The priest, who made everything happen. I don't need to explain that. But the organist performed the liturgical music and ran the school. He was training to be a teacher and an organist at the same time. When he completed his training, he came to Winona and lived with his mother and stepfather until it was time for him to, well, I should just actually read the damn story, see what it says. Okay, Dominic could have taken a job anywhere, that's true. Dominic waited patiently in Winona. He married Julia Golevsky of Pine Creek the next year, and in 1882, he became the organist at St. Stan's. If ever you have attended, say, the Easter Triduum at St. Stan's, or if you have attended Midnight Mass, I have not because I'm not from here. But there's so much of it is the music. So much of it was the singing. That was Dominic Hamersky's job. He also taught Polish and English and history and everything that on the side. Oh, great flying Fluffy. What in the ventricumbulent double F? There you go, darn phone. Polish parishes were starving for parish organists, and he was good. As Father Byszewski was struggling with St. Stan's growing pains, a parish of 3,500 people crammed into a building the size of, the little arts center down there on East 4th Street. I mean, they had to build something bigger, but they didn't have any money. Meanwhile, Dominic Hamersky held the fort and taught the school, and after Father Byszewski got run out in 1890, St. Stan's had 4 different pastors in 4 years. This is when they were busy building the new church. This is when they were busy throwing bricks at each other and besieging the nuns in their convent and pulling guns and all of that good stuff that we Polacks are rightfully remembered for in the history of Winona. They finally got a guy who cleaned the place up, Father James Pacholski. Father Pacholski was the entire deal. He got the nonsense all settled down. He did. He was a great man. But he did things his way. And one of the things was, he told Dominic Komerski, I'm going to be in charge of the liturgical music because I'm the pastor. Dominic Komerski didn't have any choice. But he went and took a job at a different church. So when they were having the great big dedication ceremony for the brand new St. Stanislaus Church, Dominic Komerski and his family were living in Ironwood, Michigan, where he had taken the job as the organist in a church in Ironwood, Michigan. Now, I live in Winona, Minnesota. It is the greatest city in the world. I thank God literally every dang day for plunking me down in Winona, Minnesota in this point in my life. I need to be here. And I have been to Ironwood, Michigan, which is, I'm sure, a fine place. But I don't think any sane person in the world who is living in Winona, Minnesota could want to live in Ironwood, dang, Michigan, which has the only level 3 quick trip in the entire state of Michigan. It's like a mothership. It's like a quick trip on steroids, and yes, you can also buy stuff over there. It's a tough place to live. It's right out there. It's as far west as you can get in Michigan. It's about as far north as you can get in Michigan. It's nice and close to Lake Superior, so you can get all the breezes. And Dominic Komerski and his family lived there for 7 years. And when they came back, because it was affecting his health, they moved into a house right across the street from St. Stan's, and they bought a house and turned it into a store where Dominic gave music lessons. Because there was no way on earth he was coming back to work for St. Stan's Church ever again. David George, welcome. The thing is that it was a matter of principle. He went to church and he sang and he, gave donations and stuff like that. He was through. He was good and through. And he wasn't coming back. But here's the thing, he had a son named Romuald, RJ, who, guess what, was a musician. And he was, they had nuns to teach the classes now, so all he'd have to do is play the organ. One day, Ron, said to his dad, I want to apply, there's an opening for the musician and organist at St. Stan's. And I'm going to apply for it. All right, son. There were 6 applicants for the job. They were all pretty well limited. Some of them had some pretty impressive credentials. And there was this kid, little Komerski, sitting down in the corner. One old codger said to another old codger, I know, let the kid go first. Let's get this out of the way. And by the time the kid got done playing his audition, the other 5 old fogies had walked out of the building because it was pretty obvious who the new director was. And his dad was so proud of him. He performed this job for many years, and he then went on to form a coal company. Komerski Coal, that was him. Went into the coal business and made a lot of money doing that. You've met their family. And that's the end of the story, because when Dominic Komerski was in his last days, Father Pacholski came over and comforted him. They were good friends, but Pacholski crossed the line. Dominic Komerski he may have forgiven it, but he never forgot it. You see, it's a matter of principle. And that's how a Kashubian rolls. Thank you.
Okay, up to you guys. Do you want the Wyndham Park story first? What? So, Wyndham Park story, raise your hand. Me asking Colonel Cockrell if he killed Lena Weinberg.
More hands. Hands out there. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. That's good.
I couldn't help it. I've been listening to this story for 3 years. I want to find out.
So I'm in the Lafayette, right? And I love that place. I don't care if their drinks are too expensive. There's no television. People can actually talk. And it's quiet. It's relaxed. It's chill. It's a really nice place to go. So I looked at Colonel Cockrell. Hi. Right square in the eye. And I asked him, did you kill Lena Weinberg? He took a deep breath and said, I wasn't always an honest man, Hanson. But killing was above my pay rank. There were plenty of folks in this town, wherever, who wanted Lena's share of the Huff Hotel. But I'm not sure if any of them were willing to live with the blood on their hands and in their thinking. So I walk around town, and I'm trying to figure out who killed Lena Weinberg right out here at 4th and Johnson, right in the intersection. She came running out of the bathroom behind the old Opera House. Right there on East 4th. She right in flames. And at the time, they didn't know. We still don't know because it got swept under the rug. Winona can get real quiet, real fast when it has to, especially in the old days. But did somebody set her skirt on fire when she was having her morning constitution? Because that's when it happened. It was just in a little outhouse back there. We come from humble stock. And Lena had a lot of money. Lena was holding $26,000 of gold coins back in 1889. That's a lot of money. Forgot where I was. Her dying got covered up. Hush was the words from the powers that be. I checked the hotel registers because the town went quiet as everybody looked the other way. I sold her shares for pennies on the dollar. I wanted nothing to do with Lena's dying. Scout's honor. I could hear them. Old ladies cackling and laughing over by the fireplace that sits in the center of the Lafayette bar. I nodded to my drinking buddies, Cockrell, Johnson, and Sante, as I went looking for the old ladies cackling. They stared at me, and the lady with the rouge-colored cheeks and jowls that stretched down past her chin line said, "Who let you into the chambers of the dead? You are a sight for sore, tired eyes." Well, you all look delightful. Friends out for a Christmas drink? Of course. What makes you think stepping on over doesn't have some enjoyable things? Oh, his generation of slow, so close-minded Doris think they know it all. You've been dead, Hanson? Seen the other side of the coin? Only when I see you or listen to the bricks in old buildings talk. I hear you all the time. Ain't no dead folks in the suburbs, I like saying, and it seems more and more of my best people, my best friends die every day. Why wouldn't I want to hang out with them? You sure do think differently. My name is Becker. I've been dead now for 40 years. You sense us, you hear us, you feel us, you smell us, and we are beginning to think your drinking finds us too. I remember you, Miss Becker. What do you want me to do? Live in denial? I tried repressing it, and that would bottle me up until I couldn't hardly talk. I'm Toots. I used to drink down at the Eagles. Bowled a couple nights of the week. When we were young, starting out, we'd have a drink at the Eagles. But at Christmas time, us old friends would get dressed up and head out into the town. Old friends gathering. We did it when we were still living, but I'm going to tell you one thing, and she jabbed her fingers right towards me. You stop writing, I'm going to haunt you. And then they started cackling. I am so lucky to have grown up in Winona, Minnesota. I don't think I would have wanted to grow up anywhere else, Ma. You know? These were my experiences. This is my base. This is who I am. This is where I came from. I walk in this library, and you know what? It smells like a library. It smells like home. It smells like old Winona. It ain't all flashy and polished. No. Our forefathers built it out of lumber and marble and bricks. It's a beautiful building. And it's been here for a long time. And then Mr. Laird that spent the money to build this place, I mean, he'd seen tragedy. He was a Wyndham Park boy. And all the Nortons died, and the Hortons became blind, or the other Nortons became blind. There was death all around. And it got you, whether you were rich or you were poor. It really didn't give a squat. And the wealthy people in this town live magnificent lives. Unbelievable lives. When you have the vice, when you have the secretary of the treasury, living in that Wyndham Park neighborhood over there, signing the checks, and you got the, whatever they call the guy who leads up the House of Representatives, Tawny, T-A-W-N-E-Y, Tawny. He lived in town at that same time. Winona, throughout this whole country. Winona was loaded. I mean, the amount of lumber that they cut and the amount of flour that they milled and the railroads that they built, those folks were here at the right time. I mean, it was ugly. It was poor. There were small houses. There were potted streets. There were animals walking up and down the street. But that's what our roots were. And some of our people were a little bit cruel. That's life, you know. We still got a lot of cruel folks walking around today. So now, S.W. Morgan or Wyndham Park? Oh, okay.
Sorry. I got pictures.
Oh,
I
okay.
never get to tick.
Oh, gosh, I had this story about Burlingame, too. Oh, well, have to be another. You're going to have to come back in a month. And on February 1st, I'm at the Red Wing Bookstore. 12 to 2.
What's that?
February 1st at the Red Wing Bookstore, 12 to 2. So we're going to see if I can tell stories of Winona to people from outside of Winona. Huh? I haven't talked to her yet. So I'm in the Philharmonic Bar. Joe had it up there one time. And I walked in, and Winona people are really nice. They truly are. The whole room felt happier as the well-dressed man made his way to the bar, hands shaking, shoulders slapping, bringing life to a party sorely needed it after a stretch of cloudy, cold, snow-filled days. Name's S.W. Morgan, Hanson. Came to Winona in 1856, set up my jewelry store in Second. Thieves all over this town in those early days. I worried while walking to the bank sometimes, but it was only a half block away. I had a safe inside a safe for my jewelry. Winona has always been a town of hard work, but life without a little laughter, some dance, some good times, is a life wasted. Any man could see Winona was meant to bustle. Those steamboats brought people and products to our levee. The jobs were here in the lumber mills as we helped build the West, and those people coming to our shores had dreams of a better life, a better way. I was in the right place at the right time, and the jewelry and watches I made adorned the wrists, fingers, and necks of generations of people who called Winona home. People who wear jewelry are happier, their eyes twinkle, and they just feel good about themselves. Prosperity. I sang the song of prosperity in all my waking moments. I was a town booster who believed any child could rise up from humble beginnings. I got that from my church, and every day I tried making that happen. I'm most proud that my family still lives in these parts, and I cringe when I walk the block that bears my name and come down back in the 1970s. Oh, how a row of brick buildings would sparkle today. People living upstairs and spending their money downtown. I bought that land and developed it side by side with Verrazano Simpson. I like to think my song of prosperity spread through the entire downtown. The Morgan Block, after all, was where Winona met and talked, rich and poor. A day around the Morgan Block made everybody a bit more human. It was a good place. A really, really good place. Some of our early times. Oh. Urban renewal. Oh. But you know, when you're there, you get caught up in stuff. You know, you don't know. You're in a different place. You're a different person at 35 and 45 and 55 than you are at 65, 66 or 75 or 72. You see different. And I mean, I'm just like everybody else. I thought I knew all at 18. You know? And now that I'm going on my last decade, I wasn't very bright back then. But I felt, my bones felt better, you know? You know? But I love this town. And all its, and Joe picked out some really cool pictures tonight that really, really caught Winona in its day. So I think we're open for questions. And we're more than...
Yeah. Well, whoa. Let's see. You're going to be reading where? And we're at Red Wing, Minnesota, 12 to 2, Fair Trade Bookstores. And I've got a couple coming up, and then we'll while you think up some questions for us. We take these questions very seriously. Or you want to tell us something that's really cool, we do that too. But in the meantime, I'm going to promote my talk at the Learning Club, which will be the no firm date, second week of February, I guess, and it's going to be called All Along the Morgan Block. It's going to be an hour of nothing but Morgan Block. And it may just be the first hour. And also in March, I will be speaking to the the Hiawatha Valley Civil War Roundtable about Sergeant Anton Peeler. So with that said, any questions, please tell us something, ask us something, make something up. David. The Polish Museum. I can't talk about that. Yeah, I am aware of it. I can't help.
It's a tough deal.
It's a tough deal, yeah.
Nonprofits are, a lot of them are really struggling. And yeah.
Okay, yes.